Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. First off, I want to apologize if you hear any sniffing or me clearing my throat. I have been a little under the weather for the last week or so. Lost my voice and I have a pretty bad head cold, but it's starting to get a little better now, so hopefully it won't be too bad for this video. I also wanted to talk a little bit about my channel, my upload schedule. Right now I don't really have a schedule. I just kind of record when I have time and then upload it pretty much right away. But I have decided that I would like to try to stick to a schedule. So as of right now, Sundays are going to be true crime videos, and then on Wednesdays I will have just a regular ASMR video. If I find time or if I feel like it, I may upload another video throughout the week. But as of now, those are the 2 days that I will be uploading. I also, I'm gonna give that a bit of time and see how that works for me. If I'm finding those days aren't really working, I may change the schedule a little bit, but as of right now, thinking through it, I think that those 2 days will work. I'm doing the true crime on Sunday because I get a lot of time off of work on the weekends, and I can really focus my time on researching and things like that. And if I do my regular ASMR video on a Wednesday, then that still gives me a lot of time for the rest of the week to prepare for the true crime video, because that one does take a lot of work, a lot of research. I have to write everything out. My printer is crapped out, and my computer really isn't the best either right now, so I have to do my research on my phone and write everything out, and then kind of compile all that information, and then write some sort of script type thing that I can glance at throughout the video. So, this video will be going up on a Sunday, so this is another true crime video. And this video is going to be on the Weepy voiced killer. And this person is actually considered a serial killer, and he was dubbed the Weepy voice killer because after every murder he would call the police and tell them what he had done and tell them where the body was, all the while he was weeping and apologizing. So let's just get into this. His first victim was out celebrating on New Year's Eve in 1980 with her sisters. Her name was Karen Podak. She was 20 years old and she was a university student. They were celebrating in the Twin City area of Minnesota. Karen was seen leaving the club alone shortly after midnight. She was quite intoxicated. She ended up in an alleyway and accepted a ride from a man that offered to drive her home. At 3 a.m., the police received the first phone call from the Weepy-voiced killer. In this phone call, the man can be heard telling the police to hurry. He told them where to find her, and he was crying or weeping. When the police arrived, they found Karen on a snowbank, injured very badly. She was naked and beaten so badly that her skull was cracked open. Miraculously, she was still alive. She was rushed to the hospital and had emergency surgery. And luckily, Karen survived the horrendous attack. Unfortunately, though, she didn't remember anything from that night. I guess you could say unfortunately for the police, but maybe it was quite fortunate for her not to remember any of that. There was no physical evidence or witnesses to the attack, so the case quickly went cold. On June 3rd, 1981, the Weepy voice killer again calls the police. In this phone call, he can be heard crying, asking them to hurry up and find him. He told the police he just stabbed someone with an ice pick. He said he can't stop himself and that he keeps killing people, and then he hung up. He calls again, and the police didn't take it seriously because of the sound of his voice mainly. A few hours later, the body of Kimberly Compton was found stabbed by an ice pick, just like the phone caller had said. She was stabbed a total of 61 times. Kimberly had just moved to the area, and by just, I mean she had only arrived just a couple hours before she was murdered. She had gotten off the bus to the area. She put her things in a locker at the bus station, and she went to a diner for food. She was sat alone when a man came and sat with her to eat. She told him about just moving there, and he offered to take her around to show her the area, and she agreed. It was just a few hours later when the police received another call from the Weepy-voiced killer. Two days after Kimberly's murder, police received another phone call from the Weepy-voiced killer. In this call, he says, "Don't talk, just listen. I am sorry for what I did to Compton. I couldn't help it. I don't know why I had to stab her. I am so upset about it. I keep getting drunk every night. I can't believe I did it. A big dream. I can't think of being locked up. If I get locked up, I'll kill myself. I'd rather kill myself than get locked up. I'll try not to kill anyone else." And as he was saying this, of course, he was weeping. And then the call ended. The police decided at this point to release the call to the media, hoping that someone would recognize the voice. And a lot of tips came in from people who thought that they knew who it was. However, when the police checked all these people out, none of them were the killer. On August 6th, 1982, the police received another phone call from the Weepy-voiced killer. and in this call he says, "Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry I killed that girl. I stabbed her 40 times. Kimberly Compton was the first one over in St. Paul. I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm sick. I'm going to kill myself, I think. If somebody dies with a red shirt on, it's me. I've killed more people. I'll never make it to heaven." And then he hung up. The next day, 40-year-old Barbara Simon's body was found. She had been stabbed over 100 times. Her body had been thrown into the Mississippi River, but she had got caught up in some shrubs on the side of the river, which made it possible for her body to be discovered. When the police tracked Barbara's evening the day before, they learned that she was at a bar, and so they went to talk to the staff. The staff told police that Barbara spent the entire evening talking to a man. Barbara mentioned to a bartender that the man was giving her a ride home, and that she hoped that he was nice. She was later spotted leaving the bar with the man. Police showed the bartender some mug shots, and she was able to identify 38-year-old Paul Michael Stefani. Stefani had a previous conviction of aggravated assault, and he also had a history of mental illness. Police then put Stefani on a 24-hour police surveillance. Just the day after that he was put on surveillance, he got into his car and left. The police followed, but unfortunately they ended up losing sight of him. Stefani ended up at Minneapolis Red Light District and picked up a prostitute. Her name is Denise Williams, and she was just 19 years old at the time. They went back to his place and they had sex. He paid her, and then he offered to drive her back to the Red Light District. While driving, Stefani was making some unusual turns, which Denise noticed. They ended up on some dark streets, which made Denise very nervous. She didn't know what he was going to do to her, so she looked around to see if there was anything she could use as a weapon, and she noticed a glass bottle on the floor. By this point, Stefani had pulled into a dead-end dark road. He stopped the car and pulled out a screwdriver and began to stab her in the stomach. Denise grabbed the bottle and smashed it over his head, cutting his cheek quite badly. It was bleeding heavily. Stefani continued to stab Denise. She eventually opened the door and fell out, with Stefani coming out on top of her. Meanwhile, a man who was asleep in his house nearby woke up from Denise screaming. He ran out and saw what was happening, and he ran over, tried to get Stefani to stop, but then Stefani turned on the man, trying to stab him as well. So the man ran back into his house and called the police. Stefani, realizing that the police would most likely be on the way, jumped into his car and drove away. Despite being stabbed 15 times all over her body, Denise survived the attack. Shortly after this, the police received a call from a man requesting an ambulance. The man said that he got beat up and he was all cut up. Police quickly put two and two together, and with Denise positively identifying Stefani, he was arrested and charged with the attempted murder of Denise Williams, and eventually he was also charged with the murder of with the murder of Barbara Simons. He was found guilty and sentenced to 58 years. He was never charged for the murder of Kimberly Compton and the attack of Karen Podak, mainly because the police knew he was responsible, but didn't know if they had enough evidence to convict and didn't want to use the resources needed when he was already in prison anyway. I think the families of Karen and Kimberly would have wanted him to be tried for the murder of Kimberly and the attack of Karen. But I guess that's it. In 1997, Stefani was diagnosed with skin cancer, and he decided to confess to all the murders as well as the 2 attacks. He also confessed to the murder of 33-year-old Kathleen Greening, which he was never a suspect for. He never made a phone call to police after this murder, and the way that he killed her was different than his typical MO. On June 12, 1988, at the age of 53, Paul Michael Stefani died in his prison cell from skin cancer. I didn't want to include any of the recordings from his phone calls to the police. I know a lot of true crime channels do include those sorts of things, but I just thought it would take away from the ASMR experience. And honestly, the phone calls are quite unnerving, to say the least. This case was just creepy. I've done a lot of research on different cases and read a lot of stories. This one was just creepy. This man was creepy and quite violent. And I'm so glad that he was caught and found guilty at least for 2 of his crimes. I'm also quite impressed with Denise and her survival instinct to be able to identify the bottle before she was being attacked and acting quickly and essentially saving her own life. At just 19 years old, she was thinking very, very quickly, and by doing so, she stopped a murderer. That's quite amazing for her, and I'm really happy that she survived the attack. So that's it for tonight's video. I hope you guys have a wonderful, relaxing sleep.